JJ Humphrey, and I am with Bobby Cleveland, Elephant in the Room, where we love to talk about stuff that other people will not talk about. We are joined today with my good friend, Dr. Whitney Louis. Dr. Whitney Louis actually got in touch with Bob quite a while back, about 9, 10 months ago, I guess, and told Bob that she was having problems at the penitentiary where she worked. And so me and Whitney got together. We all met at a lawyer's office, and we have spent the last 10 months or so fighting DOC over whistleblower violations and covering up rape. So, Whitney, it's awesome to have you here. Glad you could join us. So, what we want to talk about today, me and Bob do a program on Fridays called OCP Live, and we discuss prison issues every Friday. But today, we normally don't talk about prison on this program, but we thought with all the things going on that it would be important to discuss. Whitney, we know you got a lawsuit that's pending, or a wrongful termination suit that's pending, and we don't want to get off into that. We don't want to mess your pending suit up, but we do want to discuss what's going on. So have you heard anything on any of your whistleblower? Has anybody reached out, touched, talked to you other than me and Bob? We may have lost.
No, they haven't reached out at all, actually.
Okay, so you got a hold of ODS, and you filed a Whistleblowers Act for reporting rapes, and to this day, no one has contacted you, talked to you, or investigated that at all, correct? Bob, are you able to hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, I think they're getting bad reception. They're traveling. So we'll just go on, and hopefully she can come back and she can answer, because I want people to understand that we actually put together quite a hearing, and we were able to show this. And to this day, she has filed whistleblowers appropriately, and nobody has contacted her to investigate this. And Bob, you tell me how you have a proper investigation and nobody talks to the person that the whole investigation is on.
You cannot have a proper investigation if you don't talk to the person that is investigated.
It's insane that the Department of Corrections can argue that they've had a proper investigation, claim the agency has done a proper investigation, and nobody talked to the actual whistleblower, or nobody actually talked to any of the witnesses of the witness book. Whitney, are you back with us? You cut out for just a minute.
Yeah, I can hear you. Sorry. We're going through Heels. We have a soccer game to go to for my daughters.
Oh, hey, that ain't no problem. You ought to come down here to Lane, Oklahoma. Me and Bob be talking on the phone every 5 minutes. We tried to talk to a lawyer the other day, and I was getting kicked off about every 2 or 3 minutes, so I definitely understand. But did you hear what we were talking about, that nobody has contacted you, period? We put this packet together to show emails, to show witnesses, to show proof that what you were claiming, and yet nobody has contacted you, period, correct?
Correct. No one has contacted me from the Attorney General's, and I talked to an Inspector General whenever I was in the DOC, and they never investigated any of those claims, because I would have known that, because mental health per policy is notified whenever they investigate those.
Right. And so on those that you're talking about are the rape, because that was what we were saying, was that the reason that they terminated you was because you reported rape allegations, and that they didn't investigate those rape allegations, and you knew that they didn't because you're in place, you were the doctor, you're working in the psychological department, and they would have had to contact your office, correct?
Yes, according to PREA, they have to inform us in psychology within 24 hours, and we have around 72 hours to be able to interview the perpetrator and also the victim.
So here's the deal. You were present at our hearing where they're claiming that they did do that and that the AG investigated saying that it was done. And so what you're saying is there's no way that was done or that they violated policy and didn't notify your office. But it appears from all the evidence that we put in there that what they do is go and say, if you resign, we're not going to investigate this. Is that what your allegations were?
Correct, because every officer that had those charges or was looking at potentially being interviewed and investigated by the OIG had the opportunity to resign, and they said that it was due to administrative reasons and it wasn't criminal because they let them resign before they pushed any criminal opportunities.
Well, Whitney, Dr. Lewis, I just call you Whitney because I'm used to calling you Whitney. But you've worked all over the country in some of the most impressive penitentiaries, some of the most, I would say, hard, dangerous, well-known penitentiaries all over the United States.
Yes, I've worked in USP Lompoc, which is a federal prison. It was a maximum turning into a medium security prison, and then I worked at USP Tucson, which was actually a maximum security prison. I did a stint at Leavenworth at USP in Kansas, so I've worked in several different institutions. The last 17 years of my life have been in prisons.
Right. Now, Whitney, tell us if you hear a rape allegation, is that a human rights and a civil rights violation?
Definitely.
So, as a doctor, as somebody that is supposed to be looking after the welfare, and really any employee you don't have to just be a doctor. I mean, this is pretty standard for any employee that is an employee of the Department of Corrections. If they're aware of rape or a human rights violation, do they have a duty and obligation to report that?
Yes, they do. Even in the federal prison, they told us that if we didn't report it, that we were just as guilty as the person that did it, and that we would be pressed, the charges would be pressed against us.
And I would say that would go doubly for somebody that is a doctor of psychology that is in that position, because that's why they have to notify you of those things, because you're be a part of that and a part of those people's emotional and welfare behavior such as that. So for you, it's probably doubly important to report that, correct?
Yes, but it's also in our ethical guidelines as a psychologist to be able to report that harm to self, harm to someone else. And when it has to do with civil rights or whenever it's a vulnerable population, that we have to report that because it's our duty to protect.
So here's the deal. It's not only an obligation, it's not a moral obligation, it's not just a duty as an employee, but as a doctor, you have a bound duty to report that. And when you did, and you showed that you had reason to believe that these things, and multiple reasons, emails, like you said, you worked there, you know that they'd have to notify you, you didn't get notified. So multiple reasons to know they weren't investigating these things appropriately. You've seen 6 or 7 of them allowed to resign when you know allegations were made, which is a pretty big clue right there. And so you brought that forward, and when you started bringing that forward, what happened?
I started getting investigated on numerous occasions within 6 months, and then they fired me. And
so you actually filed a whistleblower through the state in a proper form. And again, the department claimed, if I remember right, I saw an interview that one of the higher up executives did, and they publicly claimed that you only filed that after they fired you. Is that true?
That's what they're alleging.
So here's the deal. Didn't we have a hearing and we showed an affidavit from the OMES where you filed that I think you filed that in September, something like that, and you got terminated, and we filed, I I don't know where they were. You know, they claimed to watch that hearing. Apparently, they didn't because we showed that you got terminated in January. We actually produced the termination that they gave you, and we also showed that when you turned in this whistleblower act, which was months before that. So how can they go on? You know, the news station, local news station for Oklahoma City that goes out to everywhere, and claim that you had done that only after you've been fired. That seems pretty atrocious.
Well, not only that, but I mean, you're slandering me because it's not accurate and it's untruths, like it's a deliberate lie. And my family sees those broadcasts. And my mother was extremely upset. She said, I know that's not true because I've seen all of the emails. I've seen all the documentation. So that was upsetting because now here's this organization taking advantage because they have this big voice over a little person because I'm just a layman person. So they're just trying to squash me out so I'll be silent. But it's not going to happen because that's not who I am.
Well, and what they're trying to do, they're trying to use tax dollars. It doesn't bother the director or these people at the department to appeal your case, continue your case, because they're not paying the lawyer's fees. If they come out of their own pocket, they'd be a little more hesitant to file all these appeals and keep going to court and keep going to court. So just for the listeners, Whitney won in court, found that she was wrongfully terminated. They didn't have a right to terminate her. They refused. The court told them to hire a back payer. They refused to do that. They came back and said, no, that she's in 5%, which means they can fire her for no reason. They don't have to have a reason. Turned out they were wrong again because they had never notified her. And so, again, the court found in her behalf again, and now the department has refused to hire her back, and they have appealed to a district court. So now, do you have any idea when that might go forward?
No, because they're trying to kick that can down the street so as long as they can, which district court can take years, apparently, according to my attorney.
Oh yeah, it may take 2 years to get that thing heard, and that's and that's what they're trying to do. Because for 2 years, it's going to be hard for you. You got work, you have to go out and get a new job, and then you can't take off and you turn around. They know that paying lawyers' fees for that. So they just beat you by wearing you out and letting the state pay to and that's their plan. Something ought to be done. I mean, we're going to have to run a bill to say if they lose, they need to come up with that or something. Something's got to happen that they just keep abusing people.
Right. The problem is they violate those inmates' rights all the time. It's disgusting how they treat other Oklahomans.
It really is pretty. I've worked for the department. Me and you are kind of a lot alike. That's why we've, every time we visited, you and your husband both, we all have a lot of similar type experiences from our backgrounds. And, I was just brought up in an era where you didn't do, your professional conduct, you were professional. Hey, if they wanted to fight, you took control. Once you got control of the inmate, the fight's done. We're going to be professional. We're not going to do things. I don't know if you've been paying attention. Me and Bob kind of wrote some stuff out on that they had locked some inmates in a 2x2 shower and left them there for days at a time. Have you heard anything about that?
No, I haven't heard. I've heard that there's been some rumblings where the DOC is in denial of that.
Well, they admitted they did it.
Yeah. Bob, you might want to take that one on.
Yeah, they admitted it. First, they said that JJ and I, we just don't know what we're talking about. We don't understand. Tried to make us be the bad guys, but then they turned around and admitted it. And it looks like there were 17 inmates left overnight into a 2x2 shower. They had no water, and I don't know about the food, but I know they didn't have any water. Their showers were turned off, and that's a pretty serious deal.
I'd like
and these are people's family members.
That's right.
Well,
and you know what a lot of people don't understand about prisons? Everybody in there is not a child molester or not a murderer. There's some people in there that they shouldn't be there, and they're there anyway. But
well, I mean, we've all done bad things that could have ended us up in prison, so it doesn't mean that they're all bad people. That's the problem. They've done bad things, but it doesn't mean they're bad people.
Well, that's kind of like JJ. It's kind of describing JJ.
Yeah. I sang too loud in the choir. That's what they could lock me up for. You know. Well, hey, here's what I think. I don't think our listeners quite appreciate what we're saying here, because I want y'all, if you can, to draw a 2x2 square. Draw a 2x2 square, because I swear I'm a little man and I would have a hard time fitting in that. And then you think about that you're going to take in that 2x2 cell, no food, no water, no mat, no blanket, and you're going to stay there for days at a time. And
well, they tried to say that they were doing it because didn't have enough cells, and so they were trying to find a cell. But come to find out, they admitted that they were doing it as punishment. That's what I understand. That's the way I understand it.
I think I have some statements that say that it was done for punishment. And again, I think they've already admitted to leaving people up to around 3 days. We'd have to go back. We need to go back and get the report. There's an article. I would encourage everybody to read that article. I believe that person, like I said, I know of 8, and I had been able to come up with 8. They come up with about 17, which is just, and again, that's what they're finding out.
Up to 9 days too.
Yeah, and you know, if we found out 17, that there's probably way more likely double that number. We're not going to be able to find out everything. But I think in that report, I'd have to go back and look. I've read so many reports; they're making the news every day. But I believe that he said about 9 in that report. 9 days. One of them was stepped up to 9 days. I'd have to go back.
That was Oklahoma Watch.
Yeah, if Oklahoma Watch says that, I mean, they got to have something to hang their hat on to write that report.
Well, they used open records, and they went and asked for it, and the DOC sent them 100 pages. They read 100 pages, and I guess in that 100 pages that they got, that was what come up.
Well, my question is, Whitney, you've been around, like you say, we laid out where you all worked, and you know corrections pretty well. You know what the things that we're talking about. Have you ever heard of a violation, that serious violation before, where you worked and in your experience?
I've never seen such civil rights violations until I came back to Oklahoma and saw the way that they treated Oklahomans in prison.
It is truly shocking. And again, here's the deal. Correct me if I'm wrong, because now that's why I wanted to have a person on with the history and knowledge that you have in corrections. I mean, those are human rights violations. Those are civil rights violations. Would you not agree?
Correct. Those are civil rights violations. And even though they're in prison, they're still entitled to their civil rights.
Absolutely. And human rights, you just, again, there's just certain things you just don't do. I mean, this is unheard of. I've worked in prison system for a long time, 2x2 cell, days at a time, unheard of. But here's what gets me. What are they going to do? Because this has been out for over a month, and I've not heard any discipline. I've not heard of anything they're doing. So what are we as a state going to do? And again, Whitney, do you think, and I mean, this is how I feel, and you see if you agree with me, but it's just another example that if you have this kind of atrocious civil rights, human rights violation, and we covered them up, we haven't done anything, there was nothing being done until this reporter comes out with it. I don't know that we're still going to see much done. And again, we were able to come in and have a hearing to show that we could produce witness after witness, and we could produce documents, many documents showing the allegations you made were true, and yet we're seeing nothing done, no investigations. I mean, it just looks like the massive human rights, civil rights violations going on. Not little. Hey, if we're talking little bitty things, I can work on that. But these are pretty. I mean, these are rape charges. Would you not agree?
I agree. Like, if they're not going to take that seriously and they don't protect the inmates, though, that's why they also don't protect any of their staff, and they treat the staff the way that they do also. And these women in particular, like, they're so used to being traumatized already when they come to prison, then they're used to be treated less than. And so our DOC system here takes advantage of that. And they put them and they oppress them. But then we as society expect them to come out and be changed people and be able to contribute to our society. That's a setup for them. It's not fair, and it's not even, I mean, it's not realistic for us to think that.
Well, JJ, you got to understand that if a lawsuit is filed, and I have no idea if one's going to be filed or not, but it'll go against the officers that did it and against DOC. But the individual officers will be on trial.
Well, and Bob, that's why we've come out on OCP trying to all officers. Again, I understand why they're concerned and why they feel like they may be the subject of retaliation. I think Whitney can give a big amen to that or be a witness to that. But at the same time, guess what? You kind of damned if you do and damned if you don't, because if you don't, you're subject to sued yourself. And worse, these allegations, you might go to jail. I mean, there's possibility you could go to jail if you do these kind of things and did not report them. I've got a friend that made a comment there in McLean County. He was over the jail there in McLean County, and good guy. I mean, I worked with him forever. He didn't mean anything, but he had told an inmate that said he's having a heart attack. He said, "Well, I hope you die," or something like that. I mean, just made a comment. It had a little slur to it, and anyways, he ended up getting 48 months in federal prison. And this guy's master degree, good guy. I mean, super great guy. Just made a very, very bad comment that just was inappropriate, and he ended up going to prison. Now I'm gonna tell you something. He didn't cover up rapes. He didn't lock somebody up in a 2x2 cell, not give them food, not give them water, not give them a bathroom break for days at a time. I would say making a comment would be way less atrocious than those things right there. And so again, if they'll put him in prison for 48 months, and I know they did, like I say, good friend of mine, then I would be concerned if I was these people. If I was employed, I'd get that paper out and I'd start writing and say, "Hey, what I've seen," I would get clear of that really quick. And that's been my advice to a lot of people, because I talked to a person today that was out there and told me to square up. It was happening. So they worked out there, and I just got through visiting with a person earlier today. Yep, that's happening. Yep. So I know another person in prison went in and told their administration it happened. And I don't have those two things in writing, but I have, I think, 3 reports in writing. I think you've got a written report, Bob. So there's 4 things out there. We have a newspaper article that verifies it. So again, it's not just us talking. This is, and Whitney, let me throw this at you. If I'm not mistaken, I was listening to a report the other day, and I think they said, well, we only held them up there until 3 days. And
Right.
do you find that as disturbing as I do? Because you,
Well,
like,
I think he's trying to minimize that behavior. I think he's trying to placate it, make it look like they're not doing that much damage to them.
Well, I'd really encourage our listeners, go get your pencil, go get your tape measure, draw a 2x2 cell, 2x2, just a square. Get inside that square, see if you can sit down, see what, and just think about being in there for hours at a time, for days at a time. Think about no water, think about no mattress, and then think about, how about if you stay in there for a little bit until you need to go to the bathroom, and then think about what you're going to do. You know what I'm saying?
Well, that comment that's only 3 days. That's really a very foolish comment. I mean, how would you? I wouldn't want to be there 30 minutes, let alone 3 days. And it's not been 3 days.
Well, how about we put him in that 2x2?
Yeah, in some cases, it's been 9 days.
Right.
According to
and here's the deal. I think Whitney agree with me on this. If you're in a riot situation, if you're in a multiple inmates, having a fight, and you're going by there, and you put them in there for an hour, or even if it had to be 2 hours to stop whatever, save their life, do whatever, save other lives, I can justify that. But longer than that, I mean, and again, you're going to have something to justify. You're going to have some reason to say this was done. And the problem is you've got reports out there saying it was done for punishment. And again, you show me where that's at in policy, that you could use 2x2 showers to punish people and keep them without food.
Well, it's absolutely against policy, because they're supposed to. They have a policy that tells you exactly what you're supposed to give somebody if you move them around. A bed, a pad, a pillow, whatever it is. I mean, there's a policy that states that it's clear. It's crystal clear that you cannot do what they did.
Have you watched? I don't know if this makes you feel any better, but man, they've been firing people right and left there. So I don't know if you saw that 9 pretty high-ranking officials there from the Department of Corrections has actually sued the department over wrongful terminations. Have you been watching any of that?
No, I don't really watch the news too much, but I know that there's been a lot going on. And I think it's good that people are finally stepping up and voicing their opinions. But the problem is, like how Bobby had said earlier, and how those staff would be on trial for those charges. I think it's important to note that those staff just have to prove that they were informed and directed to do those things, and then they are no longer liable once that happens. But they have to be able to prove that.
But you better do it in writing, because they're not going to.
Yep.
They're not going to come in there. If you walk in there in person and say, "Hey, this is wrong," and then you go back and say, "Well, I told Chief so and so, or I told this one, that one," you're going to go, "No, I don't recall any of that. No, I don't recall that." You need to put it in writing and say, "On this date, I saw this. It is a violation, and I don't feel comfortable, and I want to come forward and be part of correcting positions." And I think I can encourage, if you're a correctional person, you need to make sure to do that. If you're the family member of a correctional person, if you know anybody working there, you need to encourage them to do that. And again, I think these 10 or 9 top-ranking officials, I know one really well, and he's the best wardens in the state, in my opinion, and they fired him. One of the things that came out on the reporting was that they fired the doctor, the head doctor, and that they hired a person from OMES, where the director of youth department, they brought this person over, and after they hired her at a pretty high level of pay, they found out, well, in order to be over medical, that you have to have a medical degree. Who would ever think something like that, And it turns out she don't have a medical degree, so they had to hire a physician underneath her, so now they're paying double the salary, and they let this guy go for no reason, and now they've got a lawsuit, and these 9, if they're successful, I don't predict they probably will be successful. And if the 9 are successful, we're talking over $1 million worth of lawsuits.
Well, they can only get 175,000 on one of them. So if they lose all of them, it would be that. But right now, we're talking about 175,000, just 175,000.
Yeah, but Bob, 100,000 times 9 is 900,000.
I understand.
I mean, you're talking about $1.5 million, probably. Let me put the old sharp pencil on that. Let me do. that's just 1.5 million, you know. So
But you got to understand, Representative, that's not his money. It's the state's money, and he's not worried about it. He's got money there that'll cover it. It's not like none of this half of this wouldn't even be going on if his own money, private business and his own money.
Well, probably
money, not his. Their own money.
They back me up on this if I'm wrong. Yeah, when you fire somebody on a wrongful termination like Whitney's got, that's true. But now if they prove he knew, he was notified in Whitney. So if Whitney come along and wanted to file like a whistleblower violation, or if some of these girls wanted to file rape against him, he's done, you know what I'm saying? He can't say, well, I didn't know it. I had no idea this was going on. We've had hearings to show he was in the hearing. You know what I'm saying? He can't claim he doesn't know that. And if these women start coming forward, especially women with verification, and we have a lot of verification for them, I think that these officers who allowed that, the investigators who covered it up, correct me if I'm wrong, Whitney, I think that they're culpable in law. I think they're individually can be sued, right?
Yes, definitely, because they didn't report it and they didn't do what they were supposed to do to protect them. And that's right. Where those women that have been violated need to understand that they can be protected. A lot of them are still in the system, or they're still out on parole or probation. And so they're scared about retaliation because they've seen people get retaliated against. I mean, look at me, for instance, and I was a staff member. So they get really scared about how they, as an inmate, potentially would be retaliated against.
Oh, I will tell you that come out in your hearing, if you'll remember, Whitney, is that we had Bobby testify and we had Matt testify, Matt Frisbee, attorney, that their caseloads have exuberantly grown. Bob, you testified to this, that you got more people filing, that y'all are having to file for lawsuits than you ever have since you've been there.
Oh, it's probably take 10 years under normal circumstances to be able to match what they've done in a year. But let me ask you a question, Representative.
Yeah.
Did you not notify the director that this was going on way before?
I notified me and Whitney, and I'll give Whitney credit. She put together most of that. I always take credit. She goes, she gives me that old sting guy.
I'm talking about the shower incident.
Oh yeah, on the shower deal too. But on Whitney's deal, we notified way early, put together a packet. On the shower deal, I wrote them a month ahead of time, said, hey, this is going on. They come back and said, no, we don't think so. They come back and said, oh, we're going to investigate, and then never reported to me what the findings were in that, and have never reported to me, okay, what's the corrective action? And that's the bottom line. What we were trying to do in Whitney's case, I wasn't trying to get people put in jail. What I was trying to say is, you've had this person fired, that they fired her at this institution. Look at this director. It wasn't right. Fix the problem, and let's go out and start fixing these problems. Right? Again, we weren't trying to go back and put a bunch of people in jail. Now, maybe they should have. They should have went back and investigated. If they need to go to jail, fine. But what we were trying to do is fix the problem. And with the shower deals, I called in, and here's the deal, Bob. I called in, and I already knew that this was happening. I already had proof, and that's what they don't get. Is just like with Whitney. Before I made a phone call, and you were there the day that I first met Whitney, and I was like, after her attorney met, I was like, well, let's talk about these incidents going on. And I don't know if you remember this, Whitney, but I was like, how you gonna prove this? And she said, I got an email. I said, oh, you got an email? Where's the email gonna be at? And she had her laptop with her, and she pulled it right up. And I said, well, look at there. You do have an email. And then I said, how about this? How you gonna prove that? Well, I've got a letter, but pull that up. And so I was like, I tell you what, how about you meet me in Lane, America, the following day, and Whitney came down the following day. I mean, we stayed in there, Whitney and my line, probably 8 hours that day, maybe longer, and put together all of this. And I said, I want that, I want that, I want that, I want that. Here's how I'd like it kind of laid out. But if you kind of halfway do this, I'll put it together. And instead, you put it together better than I could and sent it to me. And at that point, we notified the director and we notified the AGs. And so again, I mean, no one can deny they've been notified. And same thing was done on these showers. It's just unbelievable as to how does this go on. And again, who do you report it to? That's my problem is everybody just seems it falls on deaf ears like, so I don't know, generally the PREA people, I think you've reported it to PREA, I think multiple times, haven't you, Whitney?
Yes, I reported it to PREA. And when we had an auditor, even a federal auditor, I told them that things weren't being looked into. I'll give you an example. So when I worked in Las Vegas at the women's prison, they only would give the women a blanket when they were on suicide watch. And I went to the warden and I said, hey, listen, like, this is a civil rights violation. Like, we need to make sure that they have a smock on. That's a tear resistant, like Velcro blanket that they wear. And so immediately he got on the phone and he got smocks ordered and he got them, and those women never were naked again in that area, like when they were on suicide watch. Right. Now we bring this up to the DA here in Oklahoma and nothing gets done. In fact, they come after the person who tells them, like, hey, you should probably do this better.
Right. And you would think, you ought to be getting and again, hey, we can't do every suggestion, but at the same time, I would encourage those kind of suggestions. And if possible, when we look at something and it's like, oh, this is the right thing to do, we need to do this, kudos to the person who comes up with that. That's what you would think we would be doing. But again, I'm just thrown back that even the simple, stuff that, anybody out here, I've not told anybody 2x2 sale and have anybody not go, that's like torture stuff. That's what every one of them say. That's like torture stuff. I'm like, it really is, unbelievable. I know, man, the director is really, really mad at me. He's even come out on a bunch of newscasts and said that the reason he thinks he's calling it a political hatchet job by me. And he says the reason I'm giving him the political hatchet job is because I wanted his position. And he kind of misquotes me saying that the first time we met that I said I was mad because I didn't get his job. And really what I told him was, hey, I got put in for the job, but I wanted you to know, hey, I'm going to work with you and it's no big deal and no hard feelings. Well, he spun that around and say I'm mad. I get just tickled. Regardless whether I'm mad or not, if you get caught locking people in 2x2 cells, and I'm the guy that turned that in because people got a hold to me, would it matter whether I'm mad or not, or does it matter whether it's true or not? That's what I want to know. Is it true?
Well, I would think that if when you look at it and they figure out, well, it is true, and then if you didn't say anything and they say they told Representative Humphrey, I would think that you would be in trouble.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Hey, Bob, when people call in, that's like Whitney's stuff. When I heard the stuff that Whitney was doing, I didn't wait 5 weeks, 10 weeks. I was like, what are you doing tomorrow? What are you doing tomorrow? I jumped all over this, and I've been in her case with her, supporting her, because guess what? Whether those people were raped or not, we need an investigation. See, but I have proof that she had the information to believe that those were not being investigated, that she had the information to prove that this stuff looked true. So whether it is true or not doesn't matter. She's got a duty and obligation to report it, and she sure shouldn't lose her job. She ought to be rewarded for doing it. And then she files a proper whistleblower, never gets investigated. We put together a wonderful report, send it back in. Again, they never go interview her on the whistleblower violation. How do you even claim to do an investigation and never talk to the subject of the investigation? Not once. Her witnesses not talked to. I helped put together, never come talk to me. You were part of it, never come talk to you. What investigation did they do? Because I can tell you what they did. Absolutely nothing. Now they go over and say, hey, we talked to this guy who conducted. Well, what do you think he's going to say? Oh, I did a terrible job? No. So again, that's been the investigation. That's what Director Hart claims. All the DAs with us. The DA stands beside us. Well, the DA didn't do anything, and you didn't do anything either. So I mean, wow. And so I like the AG. I like the AG really, really well. I think they've got their plate full. I think they were just trying to look at it and say, hey, yeah, it got investigated and good enough for us. But that's what's wrong with the system. I'll tell you what's wrong is when the AG's assistant comes in and says, well, a big part of these problems with these cases is it's consensual sex. And again, for him to say that is just over the top, because you can't have consensual sex with an inmate. And if all the people sitting in there ought to know that man ought to know that. We broke out the rape definition, and it's right there in the rape definition that you cannot have consensual sex with an inmate. For them to say that at that hearing shows just their mindset as to why that you're not getting anything done. They said they couldn't find corroboration. We produced witness after witness. We produced paperwork. We produced some of those didn't want to go on, so we had to redact their name because they were scared of retaliation. But we had numerous people. And again, when you talk to every person in the institution, the first thing they say is, please don't use my name. Whitney, how many people talked to you and confirmed what you were saying and said, please don't use my name?
Well, staff, at least 5 to 6 people. And then, I mean, take, for instance, one of my witnesses that whenever another officer assaulted me, she was so scared of losing her job that she lied during the investigation. And now they've given her a promotion because she lied. And the female that grabbed my ass actually got a promotion also, 2 of them.
Right. But let's also, we did get a report on that saying that the reason she lied, and she did write that, and we had that in that hearing, saying the reason she lied was because that same investigator that we're talking about that investigated all of these things told her that if you tell that happened, if you say you saw that, you're going to be terminated for not reporting. Right. And then he told her again, he told her in that interview 2 times, if you admit this happened, you're going to be terminated. So she said it didn't happen. Now, her credibility is kind of questionable, because even with the threat, she still lied, So again, I'm not saying she is right or not right, but should we actually be not looking at the person who is being accused of threatening her? Because that's intimidation of a witness. It's actually a felony. So did anybody go look at that? No. Are we going to this same guy and saying, oh, he investigated all these, so we ought to believe him, even though we have proof or we have evidence, not proof, evidence or a report that says he's threatening witnesses? Oh, by the way, we had another report that says they've sat in the office with them and had them change witnesses' testimony, even when they had it on tape to prove the witness was telling the truth. Now, so we have not 1, 2, 3, including you. So we have 3 employed witnesses saying this guy is changing testimony, threatening people again, and that's who we're going to go to. And again, I would suspect that's why they wouldn't bring him to the hearing, because they knew I was going to jump on him like a biting hog on all of that stuff right there. And he was either going to have to perjure himself, lie, or possibly get criminal charges filed on him for, or at least I was going to attempt that. But
let's be very clear on that. You requested him to be there through the director. Is that correct?
Oh, absolutely. I've got the emails to prove it and brought them in that.
And they did not bring him when they showed up over there. In fact, the director never even responded to your email, and you didn't know if they was going to be there or not until they showed up with a whole group of them. Is that correct?
I was shocked. I was shocked that they showed. I will tell you. And if you'll remember, Bob, I already had a file ready for them not to be there because I was pretty certain they weren't coming. Again, they showed up. So here's the situation. I go to the speaker and say, "Hey, I want to subpoena them." I put in a deal saying, "Hey, subpoena them," because I have the authority to do that as chairman. But we've got to go through the speaker's staff. And he said, "I'd rather you not. I'd rather you request them." I said, "I request them. They ain't coming." He said, "I'd rather you try first." I said, "Hey, you the boss. I do them, you know." So I write them an email. This is in plenty of time, probably 3 weeks before the hearing. 2 for sure. You know, I mean, somewhere between 2 and 3. I write them, never have a response. I'd ask them to respond by a certain time so that I could make sure that we're ready. Never ever.
Be clear though. This is the individual that worked for OIG who was the investigator of the rape that took place.
Of all these, and this is the investigator that the AG talked to. So he's the guy AG talked to. He's the guy investigated everything. So if the department wants to prove that I'm a liar, Whitney's a liar, this is not true, guess who the main guy ought to come and testify to that? It's this guy. But instead, they didn't bring him. They claimed, "Oh, we proved." They didn't prove nothing. Oh, yeah, we did. We proved a whole lot. But they didn't bring anybody, didn't even respond back to me, showed up with the guy who he's only been working for a little bit, going to testify. He didn't know nothing. I said, "I'm not going to let that happen." And so again, that just shows the arrogance. It shows they don't have any respect for any authority. The courts told them multiple times to hire her back, to hire Whitney back, not just her, many other employees. And they just up their nose at the court, appeal it because they know it won't cost them anything. They don't care if they lose because most people are going to give up. They just wear them out, you know, and that's their tactic. They don't care about right and wrong. They just wear people out with the state's money is what they do. And something's got to be done to stop that. Bob, whether it's these 9 executives that have filed a lawsuit on them, Whitney, we know Tifa Tiller, and again, we can go on with other people. I know another person that just, they went and got a different job. They just left. And again, I know 3 to 4 in very, very high ranking positions that were planning on retiring out of the Department of Corrections that have left because they just say they can't work there no more. It's that bad. And so again, it's time people start waking up, demanding. Unbelievable that this guy got a $90,000. Whitney, had you heard about that? That he got a $90,000, a 48.6% raise when he first came to work. Has no experience, no training, no nothing, but gets a 48%. He's making as much as the Texas director. Texas director has 30 years experience. $3 billion bigger budget, 3 times to 4 times the inmate population, and our Oklahoma directors making the same as Texas. Is that not like far out? And then all of these problems stacked up on top of it. It's just amazing. I just stand back in awe. And then what, you know, when we see rape, you know, a lot, I don't know, Whitney, you can probably speak to this better than I can, but a lot of people don't seem to think as prison, you know, inmates being raped as violent. You know, they don't see that as violent. What they say, well, that just goes part of being in prison, or they wanted it and it's consensual. You know what I'm saying? Do you think, I mean, does that not seem the attitude of everybody that it seems the attitude of the people I'm dealing with, you know?
Well, I think they think that we as layman people are above people in prison. The problem is if you were to look back at your life at any point, you could have been in prison, or you have a family member that used drugs and got off to a bad start and went to prison. So for us, just a society, to think that we're above them is where the problem lies. And the other problem is people think that when they go to prison, they should continue to be punished. But that doesn't help us as society. If these people come back out into society, they're going to be angry and they're going to be traumatized and they're going to want to get theirs even more than if we were to help rehabilitate them like we're supposed to do. And then we're supposed to let them become better people and teach them what's appropriate behavior so they come back to society to contribute. But like for his raise that he had, why doesn't he go and spend that money at these women's prisons? These women don't have enough like feminine products even to last them for a whole cycle. Sometimes they have to leave like tampons in for days at a time. It's disgusting. It's so disgusting. And that's a civil rights violation. You know, you don't even take care of them. Like that's not their fault. It's the fact that they're a female, you know?
Well, and just like that, we were talking the other day.
That's the first time I heard that.
Nah, I've heard that. I've had several calls on that, Bob. That's a pretty common complaint that I get.
I will tell you that I myself would have to buy like tampons to keep up in psychology just so the women could come up and change them because it's just inhumane. It was just disgusting. Like they would come up and they're like, they only gave me 3. Well, 3 won't even last one day. Like, you know, and it's so sad for them because they don't know what to do.
Right. And here's the thing, like me and Bob know an employee who did not want to quit, but were just working excessive hours, couldn't keep up the hours, just was tired. They liked their job. They just tired of working, not getting paid. So here they owe them like $8,000, you know. And so here's an employee, worked hours, can't get paid, and yet you're going to turn around and give him a $90,000 a year, you know, salary. It's just wow. When you're doing the things that we're talking about, you won't even buy, you know, just common everyday product.
No. When we ask about that, they say, well, we're going to study that. We're going to study that. Who studied about giving that $90,000 a year raise to the director? What kind of study?
Right. Maybe they should have studied that before they gave it to him.
Well, and this is problem, Whitney. I know most people would be shocked, but when we get a budget, you know how many times I've seen, and I'm on the budget committee. I don't know that I've ever seen a full budget for one of these. And I've asked for them many times, a full budget for, and I'm chairman of corrections. I'm on the budget for corrections. I help prepare the correctional budget, but I never see a full budget. What do you want to bet that they have a budget saying, oh, here's what we spend on feminine product? And again, where is it if that's being put in the budget? And the better question, where's that money going? Okay, where is all this money going if we're not? If we have, if we pay you for 1,700 or 1,500 correctional officers, but you only have 750, 900, which we all know we're short, where's that money? And guess what? It's not over 1 year. It's not like this just happened 1 year. We're talking about year after year after year, all of these things adding up, whether it be hygiene products, whether it be half of these people gone, or whether it be we got a contract for doing telecommunications and these inmates are only be paid pennies on the dollar. Where's all the rest of the money going? And when you turn in that, it's just like, oh, nothing to see here going down the road, you know. And so, again, it's very frustrating because now what we're seeing because of the shortage, and again, Whitney, I think that adds to the problem with rape. When you have a shortage of officers, if you had more officers, it makes it harder for these officers to do things. You know what I'm saying? Because somebody's going to turn them in. It makes it harder for inmate on inmate rape, things to occur, sex occur, violence. And we're seeing the violence on inmate to inmate increase. And now, you know, we're seeing the inmate violence on officers. We had a dedication to a prison. Bob was at that the other day. And Bob, you know, they're saying, I was told that they're saying that didn't occur while so they're dedicating this prison. It's kind of ironic. They're dedicating it to a guy who got stabbed, in I can't remember what year that was, probably late 90s, early
2000.
2000, yeah. And so I was working when that happened. I remember it, but they dedicated it to a guy named Gamble, I think, Joe Gamble Jr., I believe was his
Alan.
name. And anyways, they're dedicating this prison, and while they're dedicating it, a correctional officer gets stabbed during the dedication. And so I think, Bob, they said it didn't happen during the dedication, but you were there.
It did.
It was
Hey,
going on.
Whitney, are you at your soccer match?
Yeah.
See, quit moving. I don't want you to miss your soccer game.
Yeah, we're getting pretty close.
No, they're right there. It's okay.
Well, we're reaching pretty close to our time.
Well, I'm going to tell you something beforehand.
Yeah, go ahead, Bob.
I just got something on the news that popped up that Suzanne Summers passed away.
Oh, no.
And Suzanne Summers, I know her. We did business together, and she's a very nice person. You wouldn't know that she was a celebrity. She's just down to earth as a get, but she died of breast cancer and passed away today.
I hate to hear that. Well, there's a lot
That's unfortunate. I mean, I don't know why you just downplayed that, Bobby. Tell him because it's the Thigh Master. That's why.
That's right, the Thigh Master. That's exactly why.
Favorite product, Bob's favorite product. He's like,
that was a big deal.
Commercial again. Do it again. Well, we didn't have time to actually talk about it. I want to talk about a couple inmates died over heat exhaustion, and I got called a liar on some that we'd actually gave some money, I think. And we go back and verify that pretty easy. But I'm constantly being called a liar and jealous and mad. Bob's a bully. So, but here's the thing, Whitney, I just wanted to have you on here so that people see it's not just us talking about this. They can see an actual face, listen to somebody who has dedicated their life to working in prisons. Not everybody likes that. That's something that you've liked. You got a passion for. You want to help people. People who go to prison. Going to prison's a punishment. You don't have to do the things that we're talking about. Stick them in a cell. That's inhumane. You don't have to withhold female products from them or other, whether it be razors or just toothbrushes, just general hygiene stuff that needs to be. So again, I just like to have somebody like you on with you're highly educated. You've worked 17 years in this thing. I want people to see how the department has treated you, which is just, it's unimaginable that people would treat you that way, and that for coming forward on such an important issue. I want to just tell you how much I respect you and how much I look up to you. And that's not just because you're a little taller.
It's because I'm taller than you.
You got to get in front of her, folks. She was I could see the wheels turning. But just tell you how much we appreciate you and how much we're behind you and we support you.
Yeah, and whatever I can do to help, with it, I will, because it's a big passion of mine. These women and these inmates in general, need a voice. And that's what our job as staff is supposed to be, is to protect them and make them better people whenever they come out, to help us with society instead of hindering it.
I agree. Hey, good luck on your soccer game. Good luck.
Oh, yeah, thanks.